Keanu Reeves had no clue that tonight would spiral into one of the most bizarre and potentially damning nights of his life. He'd crashed in more hotels than he could count, circled the globe, and lived a life most could only dream of. But this was a twisted game he hadn't signed up for, one that might just unravel secrets someone didn't want uncovered. Whispers in the shadows, eyes watching from corners, and a hotel he thought he knew hiding something so dark it could flip everything upside down. What the hell had he walked into? Exhausted from a long day, Keanu arrived at his own hotel, a luxury establishment he had quietly invested in, a place meant to offer rest and tranquility. But tonight, it would become the setting of an unsettling mystery. The lobby was quiet, the warm glow of chandeliers reflecting off the polished marble floors as he made his way through the grand hallway. Employees nodded respectfully, their faces serious, but something felt off. Keanu dismissed the thought. He had spent the day buried in work, emails, meetings, presentations. The weight of responsibility sat heavy on his shoulders. Finally, he found a quiet spot in the lounge, sinking into a plush couch with a sigh. The world outside seemed distant, muffled by the luxury surrounding him. He opened his laptop, responding to a few final messages, then closed it. His body ached for rest. Then, without realizing it, he dozed off. But just as he drifted into sleep, he heard something, a hushed conversation, whispers slicing through the stillness behind him. Two voices. Lo, urgent. Keanu's senses stirred. He remained still, keeping his breathing steady. Do you think he knows? One voice muttered. Not yet, the other whispered back. But if he finds out, it's over. Keanu's mind snapped awake. Knows what? Over? What were they talking about? He didn't move, didn't turn his head. He just listened. The voices belonged to two hotel employees, staff members who were now speaking about something they clearly didn't want him to hear. His heart rate slowed as he focused. Just be careful. He's right there. Keanu's mind raced. What could they possibly be hiding? And more importantly, was he the target of whatever secret they were keeping? As the conversation continued, Keanu began to piece something together. Something was happening in his own hotel, right under his nose. And whatever it was, it wasn't good. And he was about to find out exactly what. Keanu Reeves remained perfectly still, his body relaxed but his mind on high alert. The weight of exhaustion still pressed on him, but now something much stronger kept him awake: curiosity. Suspicion. The two employees behind him had no idea he was listening, no idea that every hushed word was sending a quiet storm through his thoughts. The whispers continued, their urgency making it clear that whatever they were hiding was serious. I told you we shouldn't be talking about this here, the first voice muttered, a sharp edge of panic in their tone. What choice do we have? We're running out of time, the second voice shot back. Keanu kept his breathing steady, eyes still closed. He didn't move, didn't let on that he was aware. He was a seasoned actor, after all. He knew how to play the role. Running out of time for what? His mind sifted through possibilities. Was it something related to the hotel? Financial trouble? An internal scandal? Or was it something far worse? A rustle of fabric, the slight scuff of a shoe against the floor. One of them was moving. Keanu resisted the urge to turn his head. Instead, he let his instincts guide him. He slightly adjusted his position, just enough to subtly glance at the reflection in the glass coffee table in front of him. There they were, two employees standing close, their faces tense, exchanging glances that spoke of secrets. A man and a woman, both dressed in the crisp, formal attire of the hotel staff. The woman had her arms crossed, her brow furrowed in frustration. The man was shifting his weight from one foot to the other, as if standing still made him too nervous. And then, just for a second, the woman's gaze flickered toward Keanu. Did she suspect? Keanu remained still, unmoving, waiting. A moment passed, then another. The tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating. And then, just as quickly as it had started, the hushed conversation came to an abrupt end. Let's go, the woman whispered. We'll deal with this later. Footsteps. A quiet retreat. Keanu didn't move until he was sure they were gone. Then finally, he let out a slow breath and opened his eyes. Something was happening, and now he needed to find out what. Keanu Reeves had always trusted his instincts. They had guided him through Hollywood, through life's toughest challenges. And right now, his instincts were telling him that whatever had just unfolded behind him was more than just idle gossip. Slowly, he sat up, stretching as if nothing was out of the ordinary. His movements were casual, effortless. If anyone was watching, they'd think he had simply woken from a light nap. But his mind was moving a mile a minute. He glanced around the lounge. Nothing seemed unusual. Guests sat in their seats, engaged in quiet conversations or scrolling through their phones. A few hotel staff walked by, their faces unreadable. Everything appeared normal. But Keanu knew better. He casually got to his feet, rolling his shoulders as if shaking off sleep, and made his way toward the hallway leading deeper into the hotel. He walked with purpose, but not urgency. If those employees had been speaking about something important, something dangerous, he couldn't afford to alert anyone that he was investigating. As he moved through the hallway, he noticed something odd. A couple, seated just a few feet away from where he had been sleeping, watched him closely. A man and a woman, dressed elegantly. Their expressions were sharp, intense, as if they were studying him. Their presence sent a quiet ripple through the air, something Keanu couldn't ignore. Had they been listening too? Had they heard what he heard? Keanu locked eyes with the man first. A strong, calculated stare. Not aggressive, but aware. The woman's gaze was equally piercing, her lips pressed into a firm line. They were completely still, poised. They weren't ordinary guests. Keanu held their gaze for a fraction of a second longer before continuing on his way. He didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing they had caught his attention. But deep inside, he was already trying to piece the puzzle together. Who were they? And why did he have a feeling that they were involved? Reaching the elevator, Keanu pressed the button, his mind racing. The soft chime signaled its arrival, and he stepped inside. The doors slid shut, cocooning him in momentary silence. He turned, pressing the button for his floor, but before the doors could fully close, a hand shot forward, stopping them. Keanu tensed. The doors slid open again, revealing the couple. They stepped inside. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air inside the elevator grew thick with unspoken words. Keanu could feel their presence beside him, their eyes heavy on him, studying his every move. The numbers above the doors flickered. The elevator ascended. Then, finally, the woman spoke. Her voice was smooth, controlled. "You heard something, didn't you?" Keanu remained silent. He didn't react. The man exhaled, a small smirk playing at the corner of his lips. "You did," he said. "We can tell." Keanu turned his head slightly, meeting their gaze. The moment stretched between them, filled with quiet tension. The woman's expression hardened. "Be careful, Mr. Reeves," she said. "There are things in this hotel you don't want to get involved with." The elevator slowed. The doors opened. Keanu didn't move. He held their gaze for a moment longer, searching for something in their eyes. Answers, maybe. A crack in their facade. And then, with a slow, deliberate step, he walked out. But one thing was certain now. Whatever was happening in this hotel, it was much bigger than he had thought. Keanu Reeves stepped out of the elevator, his heart steady but his mind racing. The hotel corridor stretched out before him, dimly lit, silent except for the soft hum of the lights overhead. The air felt different now, charged, expectant. The warning from the couple in the elevator lingered in his mind. There are things in this hotel you don't want to get involved with. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a suggestion. It was a statement of fact. And yet, Keanu had no intention of walking away. If anything, their words had the opposite effect. His instincts told him this was more than just some hotel drama. This wasn't about an internal issue with management, a simple financial dispute, or even a guest causing trouble. This was something deeper, something hidden. And somehow, he was now in the middle of it. His feet moved with purpose, his mind working through the pieces he had gathered so far. The whispers from the employees, the anxious energy in their voices, the couple watching him, as if waiting to see his reaction. And now their cryptic warning. Keanu had spent decades learning how to read people, how to sense the weight of unspoken words. And right now, everything in him was telling him one thing. Something was very wrong in his own hotel. He reached his suite, swiping his key card and stepping inside. The moment he shut the door, he exhaled slowly. Then he moved. He pulled out his laptop, settling onto the couch as he flipped it open. If something was happening, he wasn't going to wait for the truth to come to him. He was going to find it. His fingers moved over the keyboard, pulling up internal reports, security logs, financial records, anything that might hint at what was going on. Owning this hotel gave him access to everything, and if there was a hidden problem, it would leave a trail. At first, nothing seemed out of place. Routine transactions, normal guest check-ins, regular employee schedules. But then something caught his eye. A pattern. Certain rooms had been booked under different names, but they all had one thing in common. The same credit card. Keanu leaned in, studying the information. It wasn't an obvious mistake, but it was there. A single card, used to pay for multiple reservations under different identities. Someone was trying to cover their tracks. But why? His eyes flicked to the dates. The most recent booking had been made tonight. Room 927. Keanu's pulse steadied. He didn't know what was in that room, but he was going to find out. The hallway leading to room 927 was eerily quiet. Keanu walked with the kind of confidence that masked his true intent, blending in as just another guest moving through the corridors. But his senses were sharpened. Every detail mattered now. As he approached the door, he slowed, his eyes sweeping over the area. No cameras pointing directly at the room. Intentional or just coincidence. A housekeeping cart was parked nearby, abandoned. No movement. Keanu took a step closer, listening. Silence. Then, a sound. A faint click from inside. A lock. A drawer closing? Someone was in there. Keanu's mind calculated his options in an instant. Knocking would alert them. Entering uninvited would escalate things. But doing nothing? That wasn't an option either. Then, before he could decide, the door opened, and standing there was the man from the elevator. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. But Keanu saw it in his eyes. Recognition. Not the kind where you meet a celebrity and process their fame. The kind where you realize someone just found something they weren't supposed to. The man's expression remained composed, but Keanu could see the shift, the quiet calculation happening behind his cold gaze. "Didn't take you long," the man finally said, his voice low. Keanu held his stare. "I'm a fast learner." The man smirked slightly, tilting his head. "You really should let this go." Keanu's jaw tightened. "I don't think I will." The man exhaled, as if disappointed. "That's a shame." Then, without another word, he stepped back inside and closed the door. Keanu stared at it for a long moment. He had just been given a choice. Walk away. Pretend he didn't see anything. Accept that some doors are meant to remain closed. Or, open it, and find out exactly what they didn't want him to see. Keanu took a breath. Then, he reached for the door handle. And turned it. The door handle barely budged. Locked. Expected. Keanu Reeves wasn't surprised. If the man in room 927 had gone through the trouble of masking his hotel transactions, he wouldn't leave his door unsecured. But that didn't mean Keanu was going to stop. He wasn't the type to let things slide. Stepping back, he took a deep breath, rolling his shoulders as if he were simply stretching. He needed to think. Reacting too quickly could ruin everything. He had no proof of anything, yet. All he had were instincts, and instincts alone weren't enough. He turned on his heel, walking away, but his ears stayed tuned in. He counted the seconds, waiting. Then, behind him, movement. Keanu didn't turn around. Instead, he listened. A soft shuffle from behind the door, a faint creak in the floorboards inside room 927. Whoever was in there, they weren't just standing around. They were doing something. Keanu Reeves wasn't just dealing with shady business deals. Someone was hiding something. And now, they knew he was aware of it. Keanu didn't go straight back to his suite. That would have been the expected move. Instead, he took a detour, back to the lobby, past the polished marble floors, past the hushed voices of guests enjoying their evening. His eyes found the front desk. And just as he suspected, the woman from the elevator was there. She wasn't checking in. She wasn't talking to anyone. She was waiting. For him. Their eyes met, and for a split second, Keanu saw something, hesitation. It was small, just a flicker. But it was enough. She knew something, and she wasn't sure if she wanted him to find out. Keanu changed direction, walking toward her. He didn't rush. He didn't make it obvious. He simply moved with the same calm confidence he always carried. By the time he reached her, she had already steeled herself. Her expression was unreadable, her body language composed. But Keanu knew how to read people. She was bracing for something. "You don't give up easily," she said quietly. Keanu gave her a small smile. "You're the second person to tell me that tonight." The woman's jaw tightened. "You should leave this alone." Keanu tilted his head slightly. "You warned me once already. And yet, here we are." A pause. A tense moment stretching between them. Then she exhaled. "This isn't your fight." Keanu's expression didn't change. He simply held her gaze, waiting. The woman glanced around. Then, very subtly, she reached into her pocket and slipped something into his hand. A folded piece of paper. "Be careful," she whispered. Then, she turned and walked away. Keanu Reeves stood there, the weight of the small paper suddenly feeling heavier than it should. Whatever was happening in his hotel, it was bigger than he thought. Back in his suite, Keanu sat on the couch, the note resting in his palm. He hadn't opened it yet. Not yet. Instead, he let the moment stretch, absorbing everything that had happened in the past hour. The hushed conversation, the locked door, the couple, the warnings, and now this note. He finally unfolded it. Inside, a room number, not 927, 1312. Keanu's eyes narrowed. The hotel's highest floor. A penthouse suite, not a standard guest room. Something was there, and someone wanted him to find it. Keanu moved with purpose now, but still he remained calculated. The hotel's top floor was reserved for VIPs, private clients, and special events. The hallway leading to room 1312 was different, quieter, wider, lined with elegant decor that hinted at exclusivity. The atmosphere was different here, and as he approached the door, he knew this was it. Keanu Reeves had spent years on film sets, had trained for action roles, had prepared for danger in ways few ever had. But this wasn't a scene from a movie. This was real. He reached out, placing a hand on the door handle. This time it turned. The door wasn't locked. Someone was expecting him. Keanu pushed it open. The lights were dim. The air was still. And inside, a laptop sat open on the desk, a bright screen casting a soft glow into the room. The screen wasn't idle. It displayed a live security feed of his suite. Keanu's breath slowed. Someone had been watching him, tracking his movements, and now he had just walked straight into the middle of their game. A soft beep echoed in the room. Then, from the laptop speakers, a distorted voice. "We knew you wouldn't let this go." Keanu clenched his jaw. Then the voice spoke again. "Now, let's see what you're willing to do to find the truth." And just like that, the screen cut to black. Keanu Reeves stood motionless in the dimly lit room, his gaze locked onto the now black screen of the laptop. The message had been clear. Someone had been tracking him, watching his every move inside his own hotel. But the real question wasn't just who. It was why. The silence in room 1312 was heavy, pressing against his ears like the moments before a storm. Keanu had been in situations like this before, not exactly like this, but close enough. When something felt wrong, it usually was. And right now, everything felt wrong. He scanned the room. It was neat, almost too neat. No luggage, no personal items. No sign that anyone had been staying here. Just the laptop. Just the live security feed. Just the undeniable proof that something in this hotel wasn't what it seemed. He moved forward, his footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. Carefully, he reached out and touched the laptop's trackpad. The screen remained black, unresponsive. Whatever system had been running was now locked down. But Keanu knew computers, and whoever had set this up, they had made a mistake. Keanu took the laptop and moved quickly, exiting room 1312 and heading straight for the service stairwell. He could have taken the elevator, but elevators were too predictable. He needed to stay off the grid. Descending several flights, he re-entered the hallway near the business center, a quiet, tucked-away space designed for guests who needed to work in private. Tonight, Keanu needed it more than anyone. He slid into one of the empty rooms, locked the door behind him, and powered the laptop back on. The black screen returned. But Keanu wasn't easily deterred. He pressed a combination of keys, bypassing the normal startup procedure. A flicker. Then a prompt appeared. "Enter password." Keanu exhaled, staring at the screen. This wasn't just a guest's personal computer. This was a system, a controlled, secured network that had been monitoring him from the moment he stepped into the hotel. And now, he was inside its walls. He tried a few basic overrides, his fingers moving quickly. The system resisted, but Keanu had spent enough time around technology to know one thing: everything had a weakness. And within minutes, he found one. A backdoor. The screen flickered, then loaded. Rows of files appeared. Security logs. Guest information. Room monitoring feeds. Keanu's instincts had been right. This wasn't just about one suspicious room. This was about the entire hotel. Someone had set up surveillance beyond what was normal. Guests were being monitored, their movements tracked. But not all guests. Just specific ones. Keanu scrolled through the feeds, scanning the timestamps, the flagged entries. Then he saw something that made his breath slow. His own name. His own suite. For the past 48 hours, his every move had been recorded. Every entrance. Every exit. Every moment of stillness. And not just him. The couple from the elevator had their own file, too. So did the two employees who had whispered behind him earlier. Whoever was behind this wasn't just watching random guests. They were watching people who were involved. But involved in what? Keanu's mind moved fast, piecing it together. He clicked into another folder labeled Restricted. A new set of documents appeared. But before he could open them, the screen froze. Then, a single line of text appeared. "We told you to stop." A shiver ran down Keanu's spine. Then, the laptop shut itself down. The room fell into darkness. For a long moment, Keanu just sat there, the laptop screen reflecting nothing but his own face. Then, he exhaled and closed it. He wasn't dealing with amateur hackers or petty criminals. This was bigger, more organized, more deliberate. And now, they knew he had seen too much. Keanu rose from his seat, his mind clear. If this was a game, then someone had just made their move. Now it was his turn. He left the business center through a different exit, slipping into a side hallway. The hotel was quiet, the late hours keeping most guests in their rooms. But Keanu wasn't heading to his suite. Not yet. Instead, he made his way to the staff offices. He needed to know who had access to this system. He needed a name. If someone was running surveillance inside his hotel, there had to be records. Someone had to be in charge. And Keanu was about to find out exactly who that was. Reaching the secured employee area, he moved carefully. He didn't have clearance to be here, not officially, but he also wasn't the type to let that stop him. He approached a locked office door, reading the nameplate. Hotel Security Operations, Restricted Access. Bingo. Keanu tried the handle. Locked. But the lights inside were on. Someone was here. He knocked. No response. He knocked again, firmer this time. Still nothing. Keanu stepped back, scanning the hallway. No movement. No footsteps. Then, a muffled sound from inside the office. A chair scraping. Keanu's jaw tightened. Someone was inside, and they didn't want to be found. Without hesitation, he took a step back, then kicked the door in. The wood splintered, the lock giving way as the door swung open. And inside, an employee sat at a desk, eyes wide with shock. A single security monitor behind him still displayed the footage of Keanu's suite. Keanu took one step inside, his voice calm. "Start talking." The man swallowed hard, his face pale. But before he could say a word, the power cut out. Total darkness. Then a soft electronic beep. Keanu turned just in time to see a red blinking light in the corner of the room. A security override. Someone else was watching this room now. And whoever they were, they had just shut everything down. Keanu had been too close. And now, the real game was about to begin. For a moment, the room was nothing but darkness. Silence pressed in from all sides. Keanu Reeves stood completely still, his muscles coiled, his breath slow and controlled. Then, a second beep echoed from the corner. Keanu's eyes flicked toward the blinking red light. Whoever had just killed the power had done it remotely. This wasn't a random blackout. It was a targeted response. The man sitting at the desk, the one caught red-handed monitoring Keanu's suite, was frozen in place. He wasn't moving, not even breathing loudly, as if staying perfectly still would somehow make him invisible. Keanu took a step forward, then another. The dim glow of emergency lights flickered on overhead, washing the office in a faint, eerie red hue. Shadows stretched long across the walls. Keanu's voice was low, firm. "You have 10 seconds to tell me who you're working for." The employee swallowed hard, his hands gripping the edge of the desk. He didn't speak. Keanu didn't have patience for games. He grabbed the laptop sitting in front of the man, flipping it open. It was still powered. Whoever had shut down the lights hadn't wiped this device. Security footage flashed across the screen. Files, documents, lists of names. But the moment Keanu tried to click on one, access denied. The system was remotely locking itself down. Keanu's jaw tightened. Someone was actively blocking him in real time. Then the man at the desk moved. Quick. Desperate. He lunged, not at Keanu, but at something hidden beneath the desk. A panic button. Keanu acted before the man's fingers could reach it. In one smooth motion, he grabbed the laptop, pivoted, and slammed the screen shut with enough force to knock the device off the table. "Wrong move," Keanu said, his voice cool. The man flinched, his face pale. "I don't know anything." Keanu didn't buy it. "You were watching my suite. You had a live feed of my room. That means you're involved." The man shook his head rapidly. "I swear, I just run the system. I was following orders." "Whose orders?" Keanu asked. The man hesitated. Then footsteps. coming fast. Keanu turned toward the hallway, just as a shadow passed by the doorframe. Someone else was here. Someone who didn't want this conversation to continue. Keanu made a choice. Fast. He grabbed the laptop, yanked the power cord out, and moved. The man at the desk didn't move. He was frozen, his hands still half raised, his eyes wide. Keanu wasn't waiting around to see what happened next. He was getting out of there. Keanu took the back exit, moving quickly through the narrow service hallway. The glow from emergency lights guided his path, the shadows flickering strangely as he passed by. Then, a noise. Not loud. Subtle. A shift in movement. Someone else was in the hallway. Keanu didn't stop walking, didn't give them the satisfaction of knowing he had heard. Instead, he adjusted the laptop under his arm and slowed his pace, just slightly. Whoever was following him wasn't making their presence known yet. That meant they wanted to watch. Keanu reached the end of the hallway, rounding the corner. Then he moved. Fast. In one fluid motion, he pressed himself into the shadowed alcove next to the vending machines. His breathing was slow, steady. Then, a figure emerged from the darkness. Dressed in black, face partially obscured by the dim lighting. Keanu didn't recognize them, but they recognized him. The moment the figure saw that Keanu wasn't where he was supposed to be, they stopped. A split-second hesitation. Keanu didn't waste it. In one smooth motion, he stepped out from the shadows and grabbed the person by the collar, slamming them against the wall. A sharp grunt. A struggle. The laptop nearly slipped from his grip, but Keanu secured it under his arm. The figure fought back, twisting to break free, but Keanu was stronger, more controlled. He pinned them, his grip iron tight. Then finally, he got a look at their face. One of the employees from earlier. The same man who had been whispering behind him while he was asleep in the lounge. Keanu's voice was quiet but deadly. "You've been following me since the beginning." The man's breathing was fast, erratic, but he didn't deny it. Keanu tightened his grip slightly. "Who are you working for?" The man shook his head. "I can't." Keanu didn't give him time to finish. He let go just slightly, then slammed him back against the wall, harder this time. The man winced. All right. Keanu waited. Then, finally, he got an answer. "We were tracking one guest." "Just one. Not you." Keanu's brow furrowed. "Who?" The man exhaled sharply, his chest rising and falling fast. He hesitated, then spoke. "The couple from the elevator." Keanu didn't react outwardly, but his mind was already racing. The couple. The ones who had warned him to stop asking questions. The ones who had watched him from across the lobby. The ones who had been waiting for him. Keanu's grip loosened slightly, just enough for the man to catch his breath. Keanu's next question was measured. "Why?" The man swallowed hard. Then, "They're not who you think they are." Keanu's blood ran cold. Then, the hallway lights flickered. A loud static-filled crackle came from the intercom above. And before Keanu could say another word, a new voice, calm, controlled, spoke over the speakers. "That's enough." Keanu turned his head sharply toward the sound. Whoever was behind this, they weren't hiding anymore. And now, they were speaking directly to him. The voice echoed through the hallway again, smooth, confident. "Come to the rooftop, Mr. Reeves." Keanu didn't move. Then, the voice gave its final instruction. "Come alone." And just like that, the intercom cut to silence. Keanu exhaled slowly, stepping back from the man, releasing him. He was no longer in control of the game. Someone else was moving the pieces now, and there was only one way to find out the truth. Keanu took one last look at the man before him. Then, with the laptop still tucked under his arm, he turned and headed for the rooftop. Something was waiting for him up there, and Keanu Reeves was about to find out exactly what it was. The rooftop. That was where they wanted him. Keanu Reeves moved through the dimly lit hallways with a steady pace, his mind focused, his senses sharp. Whoever had spoken over the intercom had just revealed something crucial. They weren't afraid of him anymore. No more hiding. No more secrecy. They wanted a direct confrontation, and Keanu was going to give them one. He didn't take the main elevator. That would have been reckless. Predictable. Instead, he found the staff stairwell, slipping into the narrow corridor where maintenance workers usually moved unseen. The air inside was stale, the scent of cleaning chemicals lingering in the corners. Each step echoed faintly as he ascended. The old metal railing was cold beneath his fingertips. Keanu wasn't rushing. He wasn't about to walk blindly into an ambush. As he climbed, his mind replayed everything he had uncovered so far. The hotel employees whispering about something he wasn't supposed to know. The couple watching him, warning him. The surveillance setup tracking his movements. The locked room, 927, and the man who had deliberately blocked him. The laptop that had given him a glimpse into a hidden network of monitoring, only for it to be remotely shut down. And now this. Whoever was behind this had just changed their tactics. No more shadows. No more secrecy. They wanted him to come alone. Keanu knew what that meant. Either they thought he was no longer a threat, or they were ready to eliminate him. He reached the final flight of stairs, stopping just before the rooftop door. A small red security light blinked overhead, signaling an electronic lock. Keanu inhaled slowly. Then the lock clicked open. Someone had remotely unlocked the door for him. They were waiting. Keanu pushed it open and stepped into the night. The wind hit him first. Sharp cutting. The rooftop was vast, a high-rise terrace offering a sweeping view of the city below. Distant headlights streaked along the streets. The hum of life continued, unaware of what was unfolding up here. And there, standing at the edge of the rooftop, facing away from him, was the couple from the elevator. The woman turned first, her expression unreadable, her dark eyes locked onto Keanu the moment he stepped forward. The man followed, exhaling slowly, his hands in his pockets. Keanu didn't speak. He simply waited. Then, a new voice. "You made it." Keanu turned his head slightly and saw a third figure stepping from the shadows. A man, dressed in a black suit. Calm, in control. He walked toward Keanu with the presence of someone who had already won. Keanu recognized that kind of confidence. It wasn't bravado. It wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. The man stopped a few feet away. The city lights cast long shadows across his face. Then he spoke again. "I was hoping you'd be smart enough to leave this alone, Mr. Reeves." Keanu's expression remained neutral. "And yet, here we are." The man smirked slightly. "Yes, here we are." A pause. Then, "Tell me, Keanu, what do you think you've uncovered?" Keanu didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied the situation. The couple from the elevator, they weren't afraid. They stood poised, their expressions calm but observant. They weren't hostages. They weren't victims. They were part of this. The man in the suit, he was the one in charge. His body language gave it away. He wasn't tense. He wasn't defensive. He was testing Keanu. Keanu tilted his head slightly. "You were watching me, tracking me. Not just me, but specific guests." The man nodded slowly, as if pleased with the deduction. Keanu continued. "Room 927 was a distraction. A dead end. The real operation is bigger." The man's smirk widened slightly. "Go on." Keanu exhaled. "This hotel isn't just a hotel. It's a front." A long pause. The wind howled between them. Then, for the first time, the man in the suit smiled. "Very good," he said. Keanu's eyes narrowed slightly. The man took a step closer. "You're right, of course. This hotel is special. It caters to certain clients. People who value discretion. People who need things to remain off the record." Keanu remained silent. The man gestured vaguely toward the city skyline. "You see, in our world, there are two types of people. Those who play the game, and those who don't even know it exists." The woman from the elevator finally spoke. "You weren't supposed to be part of this, Keanu." Keanu turned his gaze to her. "And yet, here I am." The man chuckled. "Yes, here you are. Which leaves us with a very important question." A pause. Then, "What are we going to do with you?" Keanu met the man's gaze without flinching. "You tell me." The man exhaled, as if considering. "You're not just some random guest. That complicates things." The couple exchanged a glance. Then, the man in the suit made his offer. "You can walk away from this. Right now. No consequences. No pursuit. Forget what you saw, and this all disappears." Keanu remained still. The man's voice lowered slightly. "Or, you can do something much more interesting." Keanu raised a brow. "Which is?" The man smiled. "You can join us." Silence. Then, Keanu laughed. A quiet, amused exhale. "That's the pitch." The man's smirk didn't fade. "You understand discretion, power, influence. You know how to navigate this world." Keanu tilted his head slightly. "And if I say no?" The smile finally disappeared. "Then we have a problem." Keanu's pulse remained steady. Then he took a step closer. "See, here's the thing," Keanu said, his voice calm. "You've been tracking me, watching my every move. But you made one mistake. The man's expression remained unreadable. "And what's that?" Keanu smiled slightly. "You think I walked into this alone?" The man's eyes narrowed. Then, a sharp electronic beep from his earpiece, followed by a static-laced voice. "Sir, we have a problem." The man's expression shifted for the first time. Keanu's smirk grew. He wasn't the only one who had been watching, and now the real game was about to begin. The man in the suit was no longer in control, and Keanu Reeves was about to turn the tables for good. Everything changed in an instant. The moment the sharp electronic beep rang in the man's earpiece, Keanu saw the shift. For the first time, the calm, controlled facade cracked. The man in the suit straightened slightly, his jaw tightening, his fingers twitching as if resisting the urge to reach for something. His phone, a weapon, an escape plan. And in that split second, Keanu knew he had just flipped the entire game. He wasn't trapped on this rooftop with them. They were trapped up here with him. The distorted voice crackled again through the man's earpiece, more urgent this time. "Sir, we have a breach. Security's down. Someone's in the system." Boom. A thunderous shockwave rocked the rooftop as all the hotel lights went dark. Keanu didn't flinch, but the couple did. The woman turned sharply, eyes wide. The man beside her tensed, his fingers curling into fists. They weren't scared, no, they were angry. They had lost control. Somewhere below, deep in the building, a secondary explosion rattled the structure. Not a physical bomb, but a digital one. Keanu had set it up the moment he got his hands on that laptop. He had friends in interesting places. And now every security feed, every encrypted file, every piece of surveillance they had been hiding was being exposed. The man in the suit finally turned to Keanu, his composure slipping. "You had help," he muttered. Keanu tilted his head slightly, that signature, unshaken calm washing over him. "You thought you were the only ones watching?" The man exhaled sharply through his nose, his jaw clenched so tight Keanu thought he might break a tooth. The woman from the elevator pulled out a small device, some kind of emergency override. A last-ditch effort to shut the breach down. But before she could press it, Keanu moved. Faster than thought. Faster than reaction. In one fluid motion, he knocked the device from her hands, sending it skidding across the rooftop. The man lunged at Keanu with the speed of someone trained to kill, but Keanu was ready. A well-placed strike. A perfectly timed shift of weight. And in 3 seconds, the man in the suit was on his back, gasping for breath, staring up at the sky. Keanu knelt beside him, his voice low. "This hotel," he murmured. "It's not yours anymore." A pause. Then, from the streets below, the sound of sirens. Dozens of them. The man in the suit turned his head toward the distant flashing lights, realization dawning in his eyes. They were finished. Whoever they had been working for, whatever shadowy network had used this hotel as their secret playing field. It was over. Keanu stood, adjusting his jacket as if this had all just been an inconvenience. He glanced down at the man. "You made one mistake," Keanu said, his voice smooth, steady. The man swallowed. "What?" Keanu's eyes flashed. "You thought I was just an actor." Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. By the time Keanu stepped off the rooftop, the hotel was already swarming. Authorities, agents, people way higher up the chain than any of the criminals operating inside this place. The digital breach had been a siren call. Whatever data had been uncovered tonight, it had sent a ripple through the entire system. Somewhere in the chaos, Keanu caught sight of the 2 employees from earlier, the ones who had whispered behind him. They weren't criminals. They had been scared. They had known something was wrong. And now, they were watching as the empire that had kept them afraid was finally collapsing. Keanu gave them a small nod as he passed. They didn't say anything, but the look in their eyes told him everything. Gratitude. Keanu didn't wait around. He never did. By the time dawn began to break, he had already checked out. Not officially. He simply walked through the lobby, past the chaos, past the flashing lights, past the people still scrambling to understand what had just happened. No one stopped him. No one dared. As he stepped outside, the cool morning air brushed against his face. He took a deep breath. Then, from the side of the street, a black car pulled up. The driver rolled down the window. "Where to, Mr. Reeves?" Keanu smiled slightly. "Somewhere quiet," he said. "For now." He got into the car. The door shut. And just like that, he was gone. By the time the story broke, by the time the world learned about the hidden network that had been operating inside the hotel, about the powerful people who had been exposed, Keanu Reeves was already somewhere else. His name was never mentioned. His face was never in the reports. But the whispers remained. That night, something had shattered. An empire fell. And the only thing people could agree on was this: Keanu Reeves was there. And somehow, he had been the one to end it. If you enjoyed this story, there's another video on screen right now. Go ahead and give it a look for an even more astonishing tale. And don't forget, we'll have many more uplifting and dramatic stories coming your way. So make sure you subscribe to our channel. That way you'll never miss our newest uploads.